Welcome back to the Budget Gamer channel, where we've got your indie games covered. Today we're going to be looking at Animus, which, if you can imagine it, is a really unique blending of maybe some of the earlier Monster Hunter games for PSP and the current favorite Dark Souls games. And even though Animus is actually a mobile port over to the Nintendo Switch, I'm pleasantly surprised with how enjoyable it is, but also a little not so pleasantly surprised with some of the things that need some work. Animus is a single-player game where you take on the role of a solo knight trying to fight his way through or out of some sort of circumstance that's not actually very well explained in the backstory. Though the opening visuals are really nice, and the opening story and especially that monologue sound really intriguing, it's so much information and lore that it actually is really easy to get lost. But despite that detail of who you're playing as and why, the gameplay itself is actually really exciting. If you are a fan of the Dark Souls games, the combat in Animus is actually very closely reminiscent. With the A and B buttons, you have a light and a strong attack, and the X and Y buttons grant you dodging and blocking. And much like the Dark Souls games, not only is your HP incredibly valuable, but your stamina is as well. Hacking, slashing, dodging, and blocking will all use chunks of your stamina and do have a different consumption based on which weapons you're using or how much damage you're taking during your blocks. Strong attacks as well will use more stamina than lighter attacks, and of course when your stamina runs out, you won't be able to attack or dodge. So paying careful attention to your stamina bar while trying to form a combo could save your life. The level design in Animus, as opposed to being a massive open world, is actually divided into really small sections. Each crest marked along the story's map denotes an area that you can play through, with a red dot above the crest denoting a new mission. Each mission is generally playable in between maybe 2 and 7 minutes, and generally consists of mowing down a swarm of enemies with a boss at the end. And the bosses in Animus are numerous and really impressive. Each boss, more than being merely graphically impressive, does have its own slew of unique attack patterns and defenses that you'll have to learn, and will be more susceptible to certain weapon types and elements. And this is probably where the more Monster Hunter element of the game comes in. Each area you play through grants you certain item drops, whether it's gold crystals, weapons, or shards to upgrade your weapons and armor. Different armor and weapon pieces based on the lore of the game will have different stats as well as certain attributes. And whether those be wind, fire, electricity, light, or dark, they'll need to be something that you consider in each of the boss fights as well as your weapon choice. Whether you're using great swords, sword and shields, dual blades, or even lances, you'll either need to learn which weapon can easily combat which type of enemy, or learn your own character's play dynamics so well that you can conquer any enemy with your single weapon. Then, being a bit of a stubborn player, that's definitely what I did. I prefer to play with the greatsword because it's just a powerhouse, and because each weapon type definitely has its own weaknesses as far as the implicit playstyle is concerned. The RPG style leveling up and statistics mechanic of the game definitely became a real friend. Playing with a greatsword only meant my character was incredibly slow, even though incredibly powerful, so focusing my leveling up on defense and stamina, as well as the speed and distance of my dodging, made me pretty OP. But that being said, I always will have a soft spot for dual wielding. But leveling your character and your items does bring us to one aspect of the game that some players may really enjoy and some players may really not like. And that is, in short, grinding. Of course, you gain experience playing through each of the levels in the map, but in order to upgrade your weapons and equipment, you'll have to have gold as well as shards. And of course, each subsequent level will require more of both. However, if you're a fan of Diablo, buckle in because you're really going to enjoy this part. There are multiple rarities of items and item drops, and they'll also require equally rare item shards to improve. So when you finally get your first green rarity item and you're all excited to level it up because you've saved 50 or even 90 shards, well, you're gonna need about 12 or 14 green shards to level it up. However, with new higher rarity equipment, even at level 1, you'll probably be able to easily thrash every single prior boss, which also implies that might be what you need to do in order to grind for more items to get even stronger to move on. So yeah, if you're a fan of collecting armor sets, or you're a fan of grinding and making yourself more powerful, then this aspect of the game might be right up your alley. But for the rest of us, the combat dynamics are so solid that you don't really need to have top tier gear in order to advance through the game. Your combos, reflexes, the use of potions, and rage modes should generally be enough to carry you through if you really know how to play your character. There was more than one point in the game where I got stunned and knocked down nearly 1 HP and was actually able to finish the boss fight just because I figured out his move patterns, and I finally got a handle on my own weapons ranges. That, plus the ability to combo break your own attacks using a dodge, can really save your life and give you a huge advantage. But that does bring us to a point of critique for the game, which is knowing how to do any of this stuff. Animus was originally a Korean-made mobile game that was ported over to the Switch, and maybe this is an issue of localization, or maybe the developer just wanted players to get more intuition for how to play. But either way, some of these critical points in the game, and even the ability to look back at the story to keep an idea of of the lore that's going on and building the deeper you play would be really helpful. Because maybe it's just me, the tiny yellow text that flashed little tips as I played the game became just annoying and was hard to read while I was trying to kill something. But turning off the tips and just getting a handle on my character made the gameplay far more enjoyable. I really did feel like the item drops were very generous, and I never felt like I actually had to go back and grind, though I could have if I wanted to. And Lord knows the opportunity to grind for better gear is ample. Every couple of levels or so, a blue or a gold crest will pop up on the map that grants you access to new bosses, better armor, and definitely a lot of shard drops. And that's kind of where I've got to give the developer some props, is those didn't feel like side quest grinding missions, but new aspects and areas of the game. Overall, I found the gameplay to be intricate and enjoyable, and I really did enjoy the variety in the bosses, even if the scenery was pretty static. Though the pretty static and drab backgrounds did pair well with the kind of indescript combat music, but that just made the combat sounds and the richness of the sound effects stand out even more. And while these type of third-person hack and slashes in a very linear environment normally aren't my typical type of game, I found Animus to actually be really enjoyable. But anyway, that about does wrap up the review of Animus on the Switch eShop. So if you enjoyed the review or found it helpful, feel free to throw me a like or a comment to show your support, and don't forget to click that little bell icon when you subscribe to stay updated with the latest content. There are new and unique indies coming out literally every day, so there's always going to be something new to find right here. So feel free to follow us on Twitter if you want to know what game reviews are coming up next, and if you want to help support the channel, check out our Patreon page. But anyway, this has been Budget Gamer, so as always, thanks for watching.